Good day. You are listening to the Bloomin Bodhisattva podcast brought to you by the Rissho Kosei-kai Dharma Center in Oklahoma City. I'm James.
I'm Alyx.
I'm Jocelyn.
And I'm Karin.
And we're the Bloomin Bodhisattvas. Today we're going to be discussing the 3 seals of the Dharma. So, these are known as the foundation for all Buddhist philosophy. And so these are the 3 big ones. And so they're called different things. So the Sanskrit is called Dharma Udana, which means basically the table of contents of the Dharma.
Nice.
Isn't that nice? And of course, table of contents could be, explained in a lot of different ways. It's also called the seal of the 3 laws, the 3 seals of the law, and of course, law here just means Dharma, or the 3 marks of existence, and you'll hear it translated in a lot of different ways. And so I thought we would start off with a quote from the Buddha. So the Buddha was talking to Ananda at his deathbed, right before he goes off to what we call parinirvana. And so he says, Ananda, in the future, you should make yourself your light and depend upon your own self. You must not depend upon other people. You should also make the Dharma your light and depend upon the Dharma. You must not depend upon others. But what does this mean? Okay, so it sounds like the Buddha is saying, don't listen to anyone. Now, why would he say that?
Because the real Dharma wisdom is inside of you.
The truth is within yourself.
Okay, so he's saying ignore the Sangha? We just had a whole lesson on how cool the Sangha is.
It's not the Sangha's responsibility for your spiritual truth.
And so by responsibility, that means you don't have to personally enlighten anyone. So what is the role of the Sangha then?
Community?
Yeah?
Family.
Support.
Support.
Guidance, and to kind of facilitate, bring things along. It doesn't say you don't need help. There's even a saying that says, if you see the Buddha on the side of the road, kill him. Which, of course, is not advocating murder. Buddhists don't do the murder thing.
Kill him.
But what does that mean about the Buddha?
Be suspect of anyone that claims to be a prophet.
Yes, or any kind of authority, especially spiritual authorities. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard about people who have abused their spiritual authority.
We all have those stories. We all know of them.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have stories from your time in, what was your church called? Church of Christ?
Yeah, I mean, there really weren't a lot of abuses of authority in that way. I think, maybe, economically or emotionally there might have been, but, not things like sex abuse and that sort of stuff, at least not that I knew of.
Didn't they try to tell you once that rain didn't exist until after Noah's flood?
Yes, they did. Do you guys want to hear that story?
Yeah.
A little bit. They're telling you.
Yes.
A guy with a PhD.
This was Sunday school. This was before I was PhD because I had, I was 7.
Oh, okay.
So that was just PhD to B.
PH to B.
Words.
Yes, words. So we were talking about Noah's Ark and the flood. And so what I was told at that point is that before the flood, it never rained on the planet Earth at all, because it was never mentioned in the Bible until that point. So this was a very literal interpretation of the Bible. And so, well, of course, you got questions, how do plants grow? So apparently plants grew at that point by just absorbing the morning dew. And this was the explanation that little 7-year-old Jimmy was given in Sunday school. And I do recall thinking that doesn't make any sense. Little 7-year-old Jimmy was going, And so, don't get me wrong. There's lots of Buddhist explanations for, physical phenomena that have been, discounted by science later on. However, the point is authority can be abused. And so Buddha was saying that you shouldn't listen to authorities because they could misguide you. And that includes even the teachings of the Buddha himself. So if
You're your own authority.
there you go.
Period.
And so the function of the Sangha and all these things is to kind of help you clear out the cobwebs and the obstructions of your own mind in order to see the truth that's already inside of yourself.
And open up that box of Buddha wisdom.
The black box of Buddha wisdom.
Open it with the key you'll find on your path to enlightenment. I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yes, I'm sure there's like scrolls or something inside of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's what Tripitaka is delivering in Journey to the West.
Very good. It's literally called the 3 baskets.
Yeah. All with the scrolls to teach the people of the West.
So the teachings are just a guide and a way to help bring you to the truth that's already inside yourself. And that's one of the basic understandings of Buddhism. Everybody good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Are you good?
I'm basically good because we all have Buddha nature.
Are you basically Buddha good?
Damn straight.
Yeah!
Yeah, so the 3 seals are these.
Arr.
First, all things are impermanent. Second, all things are interconnected. And third, nirvana is tranquility.
Whatever happened to quiescence?
We'll talk about quiescence when we get there. All right,
Aw.
So first, though, we're going to talk about impermanence. So you'll also hear other similar words. So some of them are like all things are transient. So what do you think like the, kind of the shades of meaning between impermanence and transience would be?
Everything is always moving. Nothing ever truly stays.
Right. So transience would sort of be things that are in transit. Yeah, I could see that. Sure.
Yeah.
Objects in motion stay in motion.
All right. So we say everything is impermanent. All right. So what does that mean?
Things change.
All right. So here's the big question. Why do we want things to be permanent? First of all, what kinds of things do you want to be permanent?
Life.
Stable households.
Financial things.
Right. What else?
Friendships.
Friendships.
Relationships.
Yes. Jobs.
It provides stability.
Resources.
Pets.
Politics. All right.
Really?
But only, only in the way we want the politics.
Right. Yes. And that's a very good point. Yes. Not only do we want things to be permanent, but we want them to be the way that we want them to be permanently. So good luck with that. And so, again, why do we want these things?
Because
Stability.
they make us comfortable.
Because
What?
we're attached to them.
Yes, we
Yeah.
are. So our stupid little monkey mind needs everything to just be solid. All right? Now, is that the way the world really is?
Absolutely not.
No.
It's not.
Everything is temporary.
All right. So when things that we love go away, what happens?
We suffer.
We grieve.
What else?
Man,
All right.
they said it.
All right, so who's gone through a breakup? All right, Jocelyn, let's hear your breakup story. What does it make you feel like?
No. I actually was the one breaking up, so...
Okay, so did you feel bad?
I mean, yeah, but I felt more free than anything else.
I think there's like only 2 million songs based upon that feeling. Yes. Yeah, so there is always this thing that says that, I wish things had stayed the way that they would or the way that I wanted them to be. And so, yeah, I've been on both sides of a breakup, and it's not good either way. Karin, do you have a story?
I have some stories, but mostly I want to just, say that when we don't accept this truth, we will suffer just as sure as you're born. And you can, at some point, count on the relationship ending in some form. And that's, sad to think about, but it's a bitter truth.
Exactly.
But it's a bitter truth, but it can also be, like, it's double-sided, because a lot of times, like, people think that, oh, my suffering's gonna last forever, or, like, this feeling will never go away, this negative feeling. But it's also temporary as well.
But also, even when good things change, it's not always bad either. Like, I had an example in my head, and then it went away. Let me try to get it back.
As things do.
Like, maybe, you're in a relationship and things are going good. Things won't always be that exact type of good forever, but it doesn't always mean that they're going to change to being bad. It's just the relationship always becomes different. It's ever-changing.
Right. So difference doesn't mean always things going wrong. Just things means they change to something that's maybe not what you expected.
Yeah. Life is like an amorphous blob.
Very nice.
Amalgamous, even.
No. All right. No. That is going to be totally cut out of the mix.
No, we're keeping amalgamous.
When we get what we want, it isn't necessarily going to come into the form we think it will be or we'd like for it to be. And that was my only point on that. But also going back to bitter, it's bittersweet, knowing that nothing lasts forever. I think having that awareness helps us, I think, be in the moment more and savor this moment, because this is it,
And that's on mindfulness.
It's like a dark chocolate coin.
All right, you're gonna have to elaborate on that.
Bittersweet, both sides of the coin.
Oh, all right, I got it. Bitter. There you go. Okay,
God,
I feel.
None of you get me.
You are a creature.
Hold on.
That's why.
I just a little goblin.
Yeah.
Okay, Jocelyn, one of the things that you said as we were going along was that impermanence means that bad states don't last. And I think we should kind of unpack that a little bit. So can you describe a situation that you were thinking of when you said that?
Well, I use that as just a tool to, help my friends through things that are bad going on in their lives. So I just tend to say that a lot, is, just remember that nothing lasts forever, especially these negative feelings that you're feeling in this sort of situation. Let's say, you broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, your partner, or, you're going through a rough patch with one of your best friends, or, you're having a depressive episode. It feels like it's going to last forever. It feels like these bad feelings are going to continue on for the rest of your life. That's not true. Everything is temporary, and you're going to get through it. That's one thing that I also use for, I have panic attacks sometimes. I just have to remind myself, just get through this, because it's not going to last forever. You'll be okay. You'll come out okay in the end.
I think that goes for a lot of really negative emotional states. Anger is a really good one. I think that, anger usually burns itself out really, really fast, unless you keep stoking it up and saying, oh, wait, I forgot, I'm supposed to be angry again. And then you have to kind of go through the thing that made you angry over and over again. And we'll probably talk about anger a lot.
But the problem with, especially stoking anger is that it tires you out.
It does.
It is exhausting to stay angry at someone, no matter how much you may want to be angry and want to be angry forever. Sometimes you kind of just have to look at it and be like, I'm tired of this.
It's not worth the energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish there, half the high school boys I work with would get that.
That's
Yeah.
hormones. It'll
It
pass.
kinda
They'll burn
is.
themselves out eventually.
Yeah, you think.
I mean, but that's why you hear like all of this, like, I want to be angry at you, but I can't, you know?
It really
Then
takes
don't be.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort, and you see that in politics as well, where you just see people who are just literally their job is to put fuel on the fire. They've just got this big can of anger, and they're just gonna wait they're not angry enough. Let's get them worked up about the next thing, about the next thing, about the next thing, and it's kind of exhausting emotionally, and it's kind of exhausting socially too.
And that's why I don't really pay attention to politics
I
sometimes.
unfortunately do.
I mean, I do, but like I have to I have to take a step back and push that all
Yeah.
aside. I have to if I do pay attention, it has to be in like little increments,
Yeah.
like
And also,
I have
you got to put like a
Doses.
wall in front of yourself there. It's like there's
Mhm.
space here.
Yeah.
Even though I know this does affect me, there's space here, so I can feel okay.
Right. And so all of this gets back to us, trying to find a nice sense of emotional equilibrium in the midst of all of this roller coaster of emotions that we normally go through as human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the problems with impermanence is that we have in our minds a preconceived idea about the way we want the world to be. And how do we implement those sets of expectations? Through
Trying to control everything.
control everything. So I have a few control issues, but maybe I'm not the control authority. So what kinds of things do we want to try to control?
I mean, I feel like I have a pretty good take on this because I have diagnosed OCD.
Neurodivergent.
Yes.
So talk about that.
So, I mean, I've kind of grown out of it a little bit more, but when I was a lot younger, it was really bad. Like, I would, like, specifically, like, try to stay home from school or whatever because, like, the biggest thing was I have really bad emetophobia. I hate getting sick. I hate throwing up. I hate doing all of that. And so I would try to avoid, like, going to places that had, like, crawling with germs. And, little kids, they're plague rats. And so, like, I didn't want to go to school or I didn't want to be around other kids. I want to stay home, be safe, be in my room. I would try to not, like, wear certain clothes, like, wear certain jewelry that I wore on this day or, eat certain foods that I ate on the day that I got sick or somebody else got sick or something like that. Like, it was to the point of irrationality. But in my head, it was something that would keep these things that I did not want to happen, that I wanted to stay healthy. I wanted to stay away from all this stuff. So I tried to control everything to the point where it didn't even make sense.
Yeah. So you're right. Eventually you kind of grow out of some of that stuff, but control is something really, really near and dear to us. So why do we want it so much?
Because it helps us keep things the way that we want.
Yeah.
If we can control everything, then we can control the way things turn out.
Mm-hmm.
We know how things are going. Like, our expectations will, come to fruition if we control everything. We know what's going to happen next, that nothing unexpected is going to happen.
Right. So it's about safety, security, and predictability.
Yes.
All right. So everyone has got those things. Those are programmed survival instincts that, our ancient ancestors needed to survive. Unfortunately, they're completely out of sync with the world around us. And so if we had control, we would do all kinds of things with it to basically protect ourselves. Unfortunately, we don't live in the world alone. And also, if we were just trying to create a world that's just up to our own expectations, we have a very limited point of view. And so we're not going to be able to, be the great world mastermind that's going to keep everything working safe and secure. And so we really have to deal with some unpredictability just because there's no choice about it. Even if we had the power to control things, we wouldn't have the wisdom to make it work right.
We are not God. We
No.
cannot.
And thank goodness we're not.
No.
All right, so
God, could you imagine?
So
No,
what
I
I
couldn't
found,
imagine God.
so it's this huge, impossible task. All right, now, that doesn't mean that we should just be completely aimless, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in between this, there is some predictability. You kind of know, that the sun's going to come up, and that, that it's going to be hot in the summer and cold in the winter. And so there are things that are somewhat
Well,
stable.
with global warming.
To an extent. But if things were completely random and chaotic all the time, there honestly wouldn't be life on Earth.
No.
So there is some predictability, and there's nothing wrong with wanting, to have some stability in your life. Absolutely. Instability is something that can be really, really harmful. So it's more about kind of going with the flow. And so the rule is this: the more we try to control and hold on to the world and need the world to be a certain way, the more that it is going to defy us. And you can see that in relationships, right? So what happens when you try to hold on to a relationship too tightly?
It makes things worse.
It pushes the other person away.
Yes.
Everything falls apart.
Mm-hmm. And you can do that. You can apply that same logic to, a job. You can certainly apply that same logic to, parenting, all that sort of thing. It's almost a cliche that the parent is trying to make their child into a little clone of themselves and control what they do and don't do and where they go and who they see and who their friends are and what their college major is going to be. And how does that work out?
Rebellion.
Yes.
Bad.
And so, people complaining about the weather is just like, well, why are you even worried about this? So, letting go is part of what Buddhism is about. And so we call that detachment. And this is a big common theme in Eastern philosophy, is like, don't get attached to things needing to be a certain way, because then you're simply setting yourself up for suffering.
I think a good word would be just acceptance of the world around you.
Or acceptance of detachment.
Yeah, exactly.
So here is an example of impermanence in nature. And this is one that you see that our founder, Nawano, refers to over and over again, and that's the water cycle. And so the water rises up, it evaporates, it condenses in the atmosphere when the conditions are right. Then it comes down as rain, and that whole cycle goes around and around and around. And you can see weather patterns just by watching a little weather map and see how high pressure and low pressure mix together and all these things happen. And so there's nothing wrong with that. And one of the things that we should really look at is the fact that even though water goes through all these different phases, it's still water the whole time. It's water as a gas, it's water as rain, it's water as clouds, it's water in the ocean all the time. And so that's a really good example of how Buddhism kind of looks at everything. So this brings us to the next big thing we need to talk about. And that is the notion of emptiness. So when you hear the word emptiness, what do you think?
Hollow.
Mm-hmm. What
Void
else?
of anything.
Yes. And so, Karin, what do you think when you think of emptiness?
Well, I think that it can be a good thing, that it's something that's receptive. It isn't necessarily a negative thing. And
So like yin in the yin yang?
yeah, an empty vessel is open to be filled. If it was already full, then what is there left?
That's beautiful. It's very Tao. I like that. And so that is absolutely one way to look at emptiness. Emptiness is very misunderstood in Buddhism. A lot of people think that it just means void, that there's really nothing. So emptiness is not nothingness. It's a really, really hard word to translate. And so what emptiness means is that form is not permanent. It's empty of form. Everything is constantly changing, like the water is going from cloud to rain to ocean and over again. So it's empty of like a solid, permanent form. And so emptiness really just simply means that everything is constantly changing and it's impermanent. And that's really all it is. And so it's a good way to sort of focus your mind on not needing things to be a certain way, but just noticing that they're just always in this flow. It is also talking about kind of the fundamental nature of the universe. So even though water changes form and it's always water, what Buddhism says is that all the energy of the universe is one thing that doesn't really have any form. It just goes into a form, and then that form lasts for a little bit, and then it fades away. That form could be electricity, it could be light, it could be heat, it could be a tree, it could be a rock. And so all that is the same universal energy that kind of comes together and then kind of falls apart and comes together and falls apart. So in one way, the universe is completely one thing, and that's what we mean by emptiness. In another way, the universe is full of all these little separate objects that are there. And so Buddhism invites you to look at the world both ways at the same time. Now, does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And it helps. And so that'll be a common thing that we talk about as we go through these podcasts. So, how is impermanence good for you?
It helps you let go of the attachments that cause you suffering.
Okay, that was very just right out of the book Buddhist thing to say. Nice.
I'm just connecting the pieces here, all
Very
right?
good.
What do you want from me?
That was good. How does impermanence help you, Jocelyn?
I mean, I've said... Chill. I've said this before. I mean, like, I kind of look at it as a tool to just, like panic attacks, you know. I know nothing's going to last forever, that I can get through anything because it will end at some point. And there's always, like, the next... how do I explain this? Like, chapter for me, or the next stage after whatever thing I am experiencing in the moment, and I can be excited for it, and I can, you know, just go with whatever is happening, you know?
Wonderful. Karin, how do you find impermanence useful in your life?
I'm reminded of something my grandmother reminded me of growing up, and reminded me frequently, actually, and that's nothing too good or too bad lasts for too long. So if I was really hurt and upset, I knew it would pass. Because Willie the Shoemaker said so.
Thanks, Willie.
All right, so we are going to continue with our Sealathon and get to the second seal, which is everything is interconnected. Now, in Sanskrit, this is called Atman. And so let me explain that because it's very Sanskrity. So Sanskrit is the language of ancient Hinduism. And so the Hindus believed that everyone had an individual soul that they called the Atman. And the way they looked at it is that there was a big universal soul called the Brahman, and everyone had their little piece of it called the Atman, and it literally went from body to body as it reincarnated. And so everyone had kind of this separate self that sort of recorded all of your karma and determined how you would be reborn. And eventually, after you go through lifetime after lifetime, you reach nirvana, and your Atman joins Brahman and becomes one with the spirit of the universe. And so Buddhism says, no, that's not how it works. There is nothing that is separate. Therefore, no one can have a separate self. And so we're not only saying that things are all interconnected and not separate from each other, but we're more specifically saying that there's no such thing as an ego. And so nothing is isolated, nothing is alone, nothing is unattached to other things, but at the same time, there's nothing that has any kind of supreme power over our destiny, including ourselves. And so let's talk about separation. How do we feel that we are separate?
We're a unique human being.
Are we?
Yeah.
All right, so what does that feel like to be separate?
Freeing sometimes.
Sometimes, sure. Explain that. What do you mean?
I mean, sometimes it's very freeing to feel like you're your own person, separate from anything else, and you are free to do what you need to do for yourself. But it can also be very isolating.
I was just about to say, yeah, isolating.
Yeah.
So, Jocelyn, explain how you feel about isolation.
I mean, I often feel like isolated or alienated from other people just because sometimes like there's people who are a lot closer than I am. And so, or we don't share as many interests with other people. And so you're not, it's harder to get along with others as much as other people do.
Exactly. So you feel literally disconnected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, there could be certain traits of a person that leaves them outcast by others.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. It could be, skin color. It could be any number of things. So groups can feel like they're separated from other groups.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we see that politically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where if you don't agree with my political value system, then we're not really connected, and you're a separate thing over there that does those crazy, stupid things that I don't agree with. And so this could lead to territorialism or tribalism, where everybody gets kind of stuck in their little group with people that think the same way they do and believe the same things that they do. And so Buddhism is really, really trying to get away from things like ethnocentrism and religious centrism as well, by saying that Buddhism is not the only way to practice spirituality, that there are other religious traditions, and we should all communicate and cooperate with each other.
There are many paths and many people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, Karin, what does ego do for us, do you think? Why do we cling on to it so much?
My instant go-to is pride.
Mm-hmm.
That was mine too.
Mm-hmm.
We get in the way of ourselves by having too much pride.
Mm-hmm. And so our ego becomes almost obsessive, and it's there for a reason. It does certain things for us. So our ego is there to help protect us. It's there to kind of look after us, but it is only kind of one facet of who we are. Okay, maybe it's worth talking about here that loneliness and being alone isn't necessarily a bad thing. Could you guys help me out with this?
Yeah. I mean, Karin said this earlier, but being alone doesn't necessarily mean that you were lonely, or, you don't have to be lonely just because you're alone. You can feel lonely in a group of people. You can feel lonely, like, no matter where you are. But being alone isn't necessarily, like, negative, Or like, something that I actually enjoy being alone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm like being around people, I also like to have my own solitude and, hang out with myself and kind of recharge. I know Alyx also likes the same thing,
And even though you're alone in like this age of technology, you can be physically alone yet incredibly connected with other people.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes even when I'm shut in my room physically alone, I am still communicating and receiving this like web of social interaction from people I've never physically seen.
Yeah.
Being kind to others and being kind to ourselves, that self-compassion, the Buddhist teachings are about too, that embrace is you learn to be your own best friend. So you get okay with being alone. You're in good company because you're your own best friend. Like Mark Twain, the worst loneliness is to not be comfortable with yourself.
That's something that I notice with a lot of people. That like, oh, I hate being alone. Like, I can't be alone. I like being around people. And I'm like, I've never related to that. I've always liked my own solitude. I like to have my own little space and, taking time away from people. I'm like, maybe there's a root of a problem there.
Well, not necessarily. I think when people talk about, really hating to be alone, I think they really hate being alone with their own thoughts because their thoughts go into some negative places.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, Buddhism can kind of help you with that. And I know that we all kind of suffer from anxiety in different ways, and Buddhism's really good at kind of helping you manage all that stuff. But we will definitely get into that.
I've mentioned before, Buddhism is one of the main factors that have helped me through my panic disorder and stuff like that, and
It is
given me good coping mechanisms.
It is a recipe for sanity.
Yes.
It absolutely is.
Buddhism is here to teach all those extroverts how to sit down quietly, alone.
Yeah, you
And
can
not
do it.
talk.
Chill the F out.
Yes.
Thank you. Somebody had to say it.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about non-ego. We're talking about interconnectedness. Another way to look at this is being interdependent.
What does that mean?
Okay. What do you think it means?
Interdependent, correct?
Yes.
It means that we're all sort of dependent on each other.
Yes, and
But not in like an unhealthy way, but in just like a normal fact of life kind of way.
Like as humans, we need other humans around.
Yeah, we're social animals.
Yes, we are.
It's like how
Right.
you take your dog to meet other dogs at the dog park, except we can think and have depression.
I think dogs can get depressed
Yeah,
too.
they
But
do.
that's all good, and that really describes human interdependence. Is that we really need each other, and we really kind of feed off
And
of
we
each
need
other.
our dogs.
We are
Yes.
social animals, like you said, and animals are also social animals.
Yes.
Mammals, that's kind of our thing. We're social. We're tribal and run around in packs and that sort of stuff. But I would say to you that everything in the universe is interdependent. And I would say it's interdependent all the way down to the laws of physics, that everything in the universe is an exchange of energy. And that includes things, that are going on here on planet Earth. You could look at how, plants, interact with the atmosphere to create oxygen. I mean, all this stuff.
Okay.
And
So
so
it kind of means like in one way or another, we need everything that exists to be able to live, and we feed off of each other in that sort of way.
Yes, and we're enmeshed in the way I've heard it is like we're in this big web
Okay.
of all of these different interconnections, and so you're in the middle of this web, and you can't really figure out a place where you stop and the web starts.
Okay.
Because you're all, everything around you is having an influence on you, and you're having an influence on everything else around you. And that goes for everything in the entire universe. And so it's really impossible to separate anything out from anything else. But we do it anyway. Now, go ahead.
For whatever reason, when you said like exchange of energy,
Mhm.
the first thing that popped into my head was, oh, like an improv troupe.
That's a really good example, because like any other kind of like performance, and especially improv, you're feeding off of the responses of your fellow actors and the audience, right?
The whole world is yes-anding.
That's beautiful.
Period.
Nice. So we really do need to make sure we're showing the difference between interdependence and codependence. So, Karin, I'm sure, like me, you've been in your share of dysfunctional relationships. And so how would you say codependence kind of turns interdependence into like negativity?
When we go around trying to please others at our own expense, and we lose ourselves, and we, going back to our self-compassion, don't hold ourselves in high enough regard to say set healthy boundaries. And so we tend to go along with things, whether it's activities or just interchanges with people that aren't healthy. We don't realize our own worth sometimes by being codependent, by trying to, please everyone but oneself. So, yeah, we got to, know our own worth.
So I think it's really worth it to say that, letting go of your ego doesn't mean you need to be a doormat
Exactly.
and let everyone run over you and just kind of glorify being a victim. I don't think that's what we're talking about here at all.
It's kind of just letting go of the idea that you are the center of your own universe.
That's a very good way to put it. So now let's talk about how ego leads us to suffering. So it is one of the big ones. All right. And so ego. So I think the first thing that we talked about was how it leads to pride. Let's talk about pride. How does pride go wrong?
You get too proud to do what you need to do in certain situations.
That's so generic. I don't even know how to interpret that.
Like, your pride gets in the way of
Apologizing.
Oh,
or
that's a good one.
fear of embarrassment a lot of the
Yes.
times. You don't want to ruin your pride because, like, oh, something you do, it might embarrass you, whatever.
Pride can also get in the way of you improving yourself, too.
Yes.
Because why would you need to improve yourself? You're already the best you could ever possibly be right now.
Like, that's even possible.
If I have to, get better, the things that I have to do are so embarrassing and so, like, humiliating, and I just can't do it.
And honestly, the things I need to do to get better are beneath me.
Yes.
I'm better than that.
Yeah.
You guys are just amazing. So,
Stop.
I mean, I think the lack of pride can be a problem too.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, Karin, what were you going to throw in here?
Well, just admitting that I can make a mistake or did something wrong. If we're mindful, we don't intentionally hurt people, but, we mess up because we're human.
Yes.
And
But I'm perfect, so I don't mess up.
we look
Yeah,
at
you can never mess up. I'm the supreme being.
Yes.
that's
All right.
a setup for
Yes.
self-condemnation.
It is. Yeah, you are going to fall. Okay, so we were talking about hubris. Does everybody know what hubris is?
Barely.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, let me give you the actual translation of the word hubris. So this is a Greek word, and it means shoulders. That's what it means.
Okay.
Heck
And so
yeah.
it's like, when you kind of buff yourself up like all those Greek heroes do. And so this was the big sin in Greek mythology, that it was people believing that they had as much power as the gods did, and that would always lead them to a tragic end. Achilles is a good example of that. So what were you going to say about it?
I mean, I see hubris as sort of like the extreme of pride.
Yes.
Hubris is sort of like when humanity's pride, it's kind of selectively only humanity's pride.
Okay, so when you talk about humanity's pride, okay, so that means that, animals can't have hubris, which I totally agree with. But do humans as a species have pride?
Yes.
Yes.
America.
Well, okay, so, we can rag on America all we want, and that's our right as Americans.
Yeehaw.
But let's look at, all of cultural history, and there's hardly a culture in the history of the world that has not suffered from excessive pride.
No, absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
The Japanese have certainly been prone to it. Oh, those Germans. Oh, the Aztecs and Mayans. Oh, so.
The British.
Yes,
The British.
Yes.
They don't
So-
exist, though. They
Sorry,
don't
I-
exist, though. I don't know what you're talking
Okay.
about.
I should have put a trigger warning there. I'm so sorry for mentioning British people.
All right. So, pride. Other anybody else got anything to say about pride? Or are you too proud?
I would have more to say about hubris.
I really like the. Well, what else do you got to say about hubris?
I mean, like, it's as it is humanity's pride, it's more like their thought that they are above anything else in the entire universe. Humanity is the supreme thing, at least in the eyes of humanity.
Yes. Which allows us to do all kinds of things.
Yeah, we can totally commit atrocities. We're human.
And destroy the earth, and there's all kinds of things
Because
that are
why
human.
why would it matter if we destroy the earth?
Mm-hmm. So pride leads us to selfishness.
Yes.
And so selfishness is just, well, I don't know. What do you guys, give me a definition of selfishness.
Thinking of only yourself, doing things because they only benefit you.
Right, which means that you feel like you're, there's two ways I see it work. One is you just literally feel like you're more worthy than everyone else. The other, which is it's still a kind of selfishness, is obliviousness.
Yes.
To where you're just so in your little thing, doing your whatever you need to do, you don't even notice that it's affecting other people.
Lack of self-awareness.
Yes. Traffic. People in traffic.
Yes.
I always we use this in Buddhism a lot because, traffic, for whatever reason, being in a car just brings out the worst in human beings.
I've almost died like 4 times within the past 2 months because of stupid drivers.
Oh yeah, I mean that's 90% of driving is like watching out for everyone else. And I'm prone to it too. I mean, every now and then I'll be in a hurry and then it's like, why is this person in my way? They don't know me. They don't know what I'm going through.
Why are they going 2 miles under the speed limit? Like, come on.
But I do see a lot of it. Like if people would just sort of slow down and let somebody merge in front of them, I mean the entire world would be faster.
If we were just a little more considerate of others.
It's so true.
We were all just a little more cognizant of our interconnectedness.
Good thing Buddhism is here to help us do that.
Something funny that just happens, me and my dad, I think it's just genetic at this point, but we always tend to find, just happen upon the worst and most, a-hole drivers on the road. And, my dad almost dies all the time, so he usually tries to, stay in neighborhoods and back roads and stuff like that. And then, I've started experiencing it, there's people coming down the wrong way, or there's people turning on red lights, and I'm, literally going, and I almost crash into them. Or they cut me off and then stop immediately, and I'm like, oh my God. And other people are usually in the car with me, and they're like, what the heck?
Good examples. Yeah, I know that there is something about driving that brings out the worst of us. Now, Jocelyn, you were saying you had stories about selfishness? Or was it another one of these things? Was it selfishness?
It was selfishness.
All right, let's hear it. Let's hear a story.
And also pride as well, for sure, for one of them.
I mean, a lot of these things kind of go hand in
Yeah,
hand.
they do definitely go hand in hand.
You could say they're interconnected.
Wink, wink.
Don't
Okay.
sound so disappointed in me.
No, I've also had, a friend who is just aware that they have issues, but is not willing to work on them. Or they tried for a little bit and they're like, oh, it's not working, and so they just give up.
I know.
And yes.
And I've heard you talk about them before.
Yeah.
I remember one time you were driving us home,
Mm-hmm.
and you were, talking about a text message you had with them.
Oof.
And I, as kind of a third party, I never really knew them that well. I only knew them when they were dating another mutual friend of ours. And I kind of knew them through them, but, But I heard, the way they were talking and the way you were talking about them. And I was kind of like, this doesn't seem like someone you should maybe be keeping in contact with.
Yeah. And no, I'm not anymore.
Yeah. I just kind of knew you were at that stage where, in your head, you were still trying to kind of wrap your head around them.
Yeah.
And I understand being in that place with some friends.
Yeah.
Were you-
I saw them improving. I saw them actually trying for a little bit, and I was getting hopeful. And I was like, this is awesome. You're doing great. Keep on going. And then they just tanked one day and just stopped trying anymore.
And that happens a lot with people like them. I've had similar experiences with an old friend of mine as well.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you're just not at the state where someone can tell you, you should drop them now.
Yeah.
I tried to hint at that.
And I did.
Yeah, I did. But, sometimes you're in that brain mode where you still want to help this person because, of course you do.
Yeah.
Of course you want to help
them.
The age-old, famous last words, yeah.
Yes.
So this brings us to another thing the ego does for us, and that is protection.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So protection can be good, protection can be bad. So when is protection, self-protection, bad?
When it starts to, negatively affect others around you.
Okay.
When it starts, protecting you from normal things that you need to face, such as self-improvement.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Where it's protecting you from doing the things you need to do to succeed, or even fully comprehending situations happening around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I noticed that some of these things start to get tangled up in each other, like pride and protection seem to, kind of get
Pride
all
protection.
entangled. Very good. Protection.
Protection.
So,
My favorite thing for Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month.
So, Karin, where's that line, do you think, between, where protection becomes dysfunctional and protection is functional? What do you think?
Well, it's a big gray area, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's, why we have a gun epidemic, mass shootings, people paranoid. I got to have my assault rifle and carry it around with me and at all times. That would be the extreme, but they're out there. There's enough to where it's menacing. And then at the same time, we want to, so how protected do you have to be,
Exactly.
to that extreme? But the reason why they're in place is so we can establish for ourselves some guidelines that help us feel safe. So we're not a doormat.
Boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, boundaries don't have to be brick walls.
Yeah.
They're just like, it's kind of, it's getting a little, you're in my little zone.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
like,
you need back
I
up.
like to see boundaries as doors.
Yeah,
Kinda.
that's good. Yeah,
Because,
I like that.
boundaries are very different for different people. Like, I don't have the same boundaries that I have set up with, friends, and then there's family boundaries, and distant family boundaries, immediate family boundaries, and other family boundaries. And then I have different boundaries with, my boyfriend. They're all very different.
Yeah.
So you got about, there are different doors, and you can sometimes open them for different people.
And so I think we'll see with all of these things that there is a middle ground between extremes. And that is something that Buddhism cultivates, and we call that the middle way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about another thing ego does, and we talked about this earlier on, and that is control. How does ego, how does it want control, or how does it exert control?
I'm trying to figure out how I can,
It makes us feel kind of important.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
Very self-important.
So that's also entangled in pride. Very good.
Yes.
I think it, too, is an immature response to getting what you want.
So you're saying
or
immature,
not getting what you want.
so like a childish response?
Yeah.
Like, when I want it now?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yes.
even a monkey response.
Monkey mind response.
Mhm.
Totally.
It's like when you want the banana, but your monkey friend just took the banana, and now you cannot have the banana. So you must fight monkey friend.
And so control, when it gets completely out of hand, it leads to domination, which is a real ego trip. And you see domination in politics. I mean,
You see it in the workplace.
Oh,
we've
yeah.
all experienced something like that, or
I mean-
in school, or something like
You
that.
see it in celebrities.
Oh yes, and anyone that tends to feel like they're above and beyond anyone else, whether that's because they have more money or more fame or more status.
Or both. Or all three.
Yes.
They're higher up in the hierarchy.
Yeah, and of course this is our monkey mind talking again, because we evolved from a species where being the big bad alpha male got you everything you wanted in life,
It
and
got
so
you the banana.
yes, it did. So domination is where not only are you causing your own suffering, because you wouldn't need to dominate if you weren't suffering, but you're also inflicting it on other people, which is creating all kinds of problems for them.
It creates conflict, and that goes back to Buddhist practice and dealing with that conflict. It's best to be calm and clear-headed and just detached emotionally, because otherwise it escalates into something even bigger.
Exactly, and Buddhism is very good at de-escalating conflict internally and externally. So, last thing. How does interconnectedness, how does not having an ego kind of help us?
It helps us kind of, again, connect with others, realizing that we're kind of all in this place together, and we are all connected by this place that we're in, and on this path we're all walking.
We're all in
This
this together.
Till the end.
right, so the final seal of our Sealathon
R.
is nirvana is tranquility. Now,
But whatever happened to nirvana's quiescence?
well, I really like the word quiescence.
It's a
I do.
wonderful word.
It is a wonderful word. I think it was considered to be too archaic, maybe.
What's the point of having a religion if you're not going to be archaic about it?
Exactly. You have to be very, like, elegant and very...
Yeah.
What's the word? Eloquent.
Pretentious.
Exactly.
Yes.
It has to be pretentious.
Yeah, what's the point of having a religion if you're not going to be pretentious about
And
it?
we're trying to be down to earth here.
Isn't that what the podcast is about?
Exactly, being down to earth, not being pretentious.
Oh, man.
Although
the
we
whole
can
point of
be
Buddhism
elegant
is-
and eloquent.
We can be elegant and eloquent, but pretentious is not Buddhist.
Yeah, but not elephant. Oh, we could be elephant.
Be
Yeah,
elephant.
there
Okay.
are a lot of elephants
Elephants
in
are
Buddhism.
great.
There are
All
a
right.
lot of elephants in Buddhism, too.
So, the point here is that if you understand that everything is interconnected and everything is impermanent, that will lead you to a realization of nirvana, which will lead you to peace of mind. Now, nirvana has a lot of different meanings. It's something that everybody kind of throws around. There's, of course, the band is named after it, all that. So let's kind of go over them and then we will wrap this up. So one of the things that nirvana means is enlightenment. What does that mean?
Kind
You've
of,
ascended.
kind
That
of like
you've what?
Ascended.
Ascended, I like
Yeah.
that.
I see it as kind of like a true knowing of the things around you and the way that the world works.
You've opened your third eye.
Yeah, and knowing your true place within that whole mess.
Okay, now technically it's not opening the third eye, it's
I'm kidding.
opening up the crown chakra, but that's okay.
Can there be an eye in that chakra?
Yes, you can mix all of these metaphors, and actually the crown chakra is 1,000-fold lotus flower. But anyway,
What if we put an eye in the lotus? It's like, it opens up and there's an eye in there.
beautiful.
Like for the logo?
So, enlightenment. So the way to look at enlightenment is that when you really sort of see the world the way it truly is, it's almost like it lights up for you, and you see everything clearly. And so, light is just a metaphor for being awake and alert and aware and understanding things.
And nirvana is kind of like letting that light into yourself and becoming one with it.
Right, because the light's already always there.
You just gotta find the switch.
Very good, which is opening your third eye. All right.
And the
So I'm
lotus,
correct.
and it's the lotus blossom blooming.
Beautiful. Another term you see used is liberation. So what are we liberating ourselves from here?
Suffering.
Yes.
Yep, the pain and suffering of being a human boy.
Yep, that's it. Karin, what do you think about when you hear the word liberation?
Free, just not, free of suffering
Yes.
in particular.
Maybe free from attachment,
Yeah,
like the chains of attachment,
That
they break.
leads to our suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
I also think, free of oppression. Because I feel like you could also very easily, with suffering can be oppressive.
Yes.
Or you could unintentionally oppress yourself. Not in like a, I'm so oppressed. You know how some people are.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. yeah. But, like, we put ourselves in oppressive states. How we usually think of oppression with, like, racism, stuff like that. We don't put ourselves there. That sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about in more of like a mental sense, almost.
But I think you could look at it in both ways. I
Yeah.
think when we talk about liberation, we're talking about social justice.
Yeah, no, absolutely, too, yeah.
And that.
I meant that as like a kind of like a double meaning.
Yeah, and so Buddhism is really good at both of those things. It'll help you kind of liberate yourself from the fetters of attachment that you've got inside of your own mind, but it can help make the world a better place too.
I mean, it hasn't Buddhists been like super involved in like just in general like social justice movements and stuff
Social
like
justice, specifically peace movements.
that? Yeah,
Yes.
peace movements.
More so in other countries than here,
Yeah.
but certainly throughout history and all throughout the Eastern world, for sure.
It's not too late for us to organize some peacefuls.
And I think that's worthy of discussion in one of our episodes, is talk about how a lot of these things can translate into how to bring about more social justice, more equality, and less oppression and suffering in society. All right, next. Nirvana means a sense of balance. What does that mean to you? What does balance look like?
I mean, as we've discussed with everything, there needs to be like a balance of like maybe setting our own boundaries and, how we treat others around us. It's a balance of how we treat ourselves and the world and the people.
So that's kind of another expression of the middle way.
Yeah.
By not
just
not
finding
going
a
to
happy medium for everything.
not going to one
It's a
extreme or the
tightrope.
other.
And you gotta make sure you're all balanced on it.
Now let's go from balance to harmony. So harmony is a kind of balance for sure, but it's also a little bit more. So we talk about harmony as like, kind of being in tune with things. What does that mean?
It could mean interconnectedness.
Absolutely.
100%.
It also means like an understanding of this as well.
Yeah, because to be in harmony, you have to really listen to what.
So that harmony goes hand in hand with interconnectedness, enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
Aligning with other people's energy and
Mm-hmm.
All the seals go hand in hand.
They do.
They're holding hands.
But they didn't have flippers.
They're holding flippers.
Okay,
God.
all right. And so harmony, I think, is a real fundamental concept for us, because harmony means, being sensitive to things around you and kind of finding the place where you sort of fit in with what's going on. Not conforming, not obeying, but just being in tune with the things around you. And this is what makes it such a good metaphor, because we all know what it means musically to be in tune and how that feels for us emotionally and in other kinds of ways as well. And of course, the essence, the foundation of all this is inner peace. Nirvana is a sense of inner peace, where you are not perturbed by things that are going on. When unexpected things happen, they don't slap you around as much. When you're facing unfamiliar situations, you have a way of finding your center and getting through them. When you're going through tough times, you have ways of not making that worse on yourself, and you have ways of making your interactions and relationships with people full of harmony and less conflict.
I like that we can attain that inner peace just by going inside, looking within oneself, and the things that contribute to our well-being don't have to come with a big price tag. That we can look inside ourselves to help boost our dopamine levels.
Yes.
It's like become your own dopamine factory. Do the things that contribute to our inner peace and our well-being in general, our health, like meditation. We know meditation and deep breathing, helps increase the dopamine and feel-good chemicals in our brains. What are some other things that do that for us? Like time in nature,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. I think that's right.
definitely.
gratitude, music.
Doing things for others.
Or
Mhm.
just
Yep.
doing things we personally enjoy.
Exactly. And enough sleep, teenagers.
Um,
Moving our bodies.
Mhm.
Stretching.
I do like my night walks.
being with family and friends.
Our social connections.
Or even, just being alone for a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like peace really comes from like the inside out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if we understand that, and there's other things that also do that, whether it's doing something new, cold showers, there's all, help us, feel happy. But if we understand that these things contribute to our happiness, that it's within us, and we can feel good without the alcohol or the relationship that we're addicted to, or it just makes life easier, and it just and contributes to our physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. And that's where the buzz phrase "now that's dope" came from.
Now that's dopamine.
Nicely done. So the bottom line is that happiness is possible and it is within our grasp.
Yes.
And it's ours.
All right, so just to wrap up this part, all three of the seals, as we say, go hand in hand. They all work together because they're all ways of dispelling.
I think you mean they go flipper and flipper.
Yes, they go flip, flip, and flip. They're all ways of dispelling ignorance. And so for Buddhism, all suffering comes out of ignorance. It's just that we expect the world to be something that it is not. And instead, if we're seeing it the way that it really is, it's not going to create as much havoc inside of our mind, because there's not going to be this disconnect between what we want inside of ourselves and what's going on outside of ourselves. And the last thing I want to say is that nirvana isn't something that you attain. It's more like something you discover. When you learn to be really aware of the world the way it is, you see that it's not full of darkness and sadness and conflict all the time. That there's positivity and there's light and there's wonderful, beautiful things going on around you all the time.
There is always a silver lining.
Yes, well, not only that, it's not just a silver lining, the world is built of light. And Buddhism kind of helps you see that, and see that nirvana isn't a place you go to, it's something that's always already here. All right, children, so what did we learn today? What are the three seals of the Dharma?
Well, one of them is good old nirvana is quiescence.
All right, explain that.
It means that nirvana, or finding your own inner peace, leads to peace for everything around you.
Nice. That's good.
Sleep.
All right. Next seal.
Everything is interconnected.
All right. What does that mean?
In one way or another, everything relies on everything else in some sort of way. There is some sort of connection between everything in the universe. And we need everything in the universe to be able to live and, be who we are.
Be healthy and thrive.
Yes, and thrive.
Thrive. And lastly, last seal.
As mentioned earlier, nothing too good or too bad lasts for too long.
Mm-hmm.
Impermanence of all things.
Impermanence of all things. And there we have the three seals, and thank you.
R.
Jocelyn absolutely refuses to R. Come on.
Not even for us, because you love us.
R.
Yay!
Thank you all for listening to the Bloomin Bodhisattva podcast, brought to you by the Rissho Kosei-kai Dharma Center in Oklahoma City. And stay tuned for the next episode when we will talk about the Four Noble Truths. Until then, our fellow Bodhisattvas, keep on blooming!